Hi, and welcome to the Low-Level Devel channel's Build Your Own Linux Distribution from Scratch series. The key goals of this series are as follows: to give you a deeper understanding of Linux-based OSs and how they're put together, learn the key software packages and libraries that are part of every Linux distribution, learn a good amount of Bash shell scripting, learn how to do Linux system programming in C, and learn how to put together your own Linux OS distribution. Much of this video series will be based on details and processes laid out on the linuxfromscratch.org, aka LFS. If you aren't familiar with LFS, that's not a problem, but I would encourage you to go through that site as well and read through the materials that they provide. It's really a great learning experience, especially for anyone really interested in Linux. I will use that website through much of these videos and as a basis for most of our build packages that we'll create. But I won't read through all the details and of all the pages and packages for you. So if you really want to learn more in depth on each of the packages, I'd recommend reading that info from the LFS site. The first set of videos will be focused on creating a build environment to start building packages for your Linux-based OS. This is an important first step because if you want to have you really want to have a build environment that you can easily recreate and modify when needed, and you don't want your OS to have any dependencies on the host system that you'll be developing it on. You'll want it to be able to build the packages for your distribution on really any host system once it's created. Of course, it'd have to be Linux based, but yeah. Speaking of host systems, I'll be using Ubuntu 20.04 for my host system, but you can really use any distribution of Linux for this. You just have to ensure that you have the necessary software packages installed in order to create your build environment. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to github.com and create a new repository for this project. And I'd advise you to do the same for your own, because you're really going to want a place to put all of your scripts and your package files and your repository and even your released binaries and all that. So I'm going to assume that you know how to use Git here. So I'm just going to kind of run through this pretty quickly. I'm just creating a repository, copying it so I can clone it into my local. And this is where we'll kind of get started. So let me just run through this really quick. And if you see, once you have the section here for releases, so this is where you can actually create new releases to update and upload your binaries and all that, so you don't have to rebuild all the time. So now I'm going to open Visual Studio Code. So this is where I'm going to kind of edit my shell scripts and all of that. Alright, so I'll create a based folder here for our build environment. I'll just call it build env. So this is the folder where we're going to put all the scripts and everything related to creating our initial build environment. I'm also creating a build root folder. This is where essentially the root of the system we're building is going to be. And I'm going to create a shell script to prepare that environment. So this is where we'll actually set up our initial build root environment. So now let's go over to Firefox, and I'm going to show you the Linux from Scratch website. Now it'll look a little bit different than this. I use a dark reader plugin extension, so I don't have to see these bright white web pages, but this is the section here, LFS, that you want, and you can click read online. I'd actually suggest you download your own copy too, but this section here, systemd version of LFS, current stable, that's the one I'm going to base this off of. So let's go to this stable LFS systemd link. And this is the Linux from Scratch website, and it's what I mentioned before. You can run through the whole process if you want to, but this section here, building the LFS, cross tool chain and temporary tools, and preparing the build is what we're going to start with. So the very first thing is there's these host system requirements. There's certain packages you need on the host system to start with. So I'm going to actually copy this because we have this version check shell script. I'm going to copy the contents all the way down before this EOF. I'm going to just copy it and create my own version of that. So version check.sh. So I'll just paste that in here. And this will run through and let you know if the host system has all the necessities needed to start building your environment. So if I go into here again, not in build root, back one. So now I can just run bash version check to actually check if I have all the right software installed. So right off the bat I see an issue here that bin sh does not point to bash. It's using zsh, and another one down here, gawk command not found, so I need that as well. I think everything else looks okay, but you kind of need to look through carefully and see if there's any issues. So let me go ahead and fix our issue here with bin sh. So first I'm going to just remove that existing bin sh because it's just a link, and I'm going to relink it to, let's see, bin bash to bin sh. So now if I run this version check again, that part passes. Now I just need to install gawk, which is the GNU version of awk. So for my distribution, Ubuntu, you just apt install gawk. And that will install that, and then I should have everything that I need to go to actually start building my own environment here. Let's run it again, and yep, that error is gone and everything seems to check out. So you can read through carefully. Sometimes you might, if you have issues, you might want to check your versions that are installed of the different packages along with that website. So now let's go back over here to the prepare. And this is going to be based on information, again, from this website. So I'm going to kind of breeze through this stuff and just pick out the things that are really necessary for the purpose of building our distribution. And I'm not going to get into creating partitions and stuff like that yet, because we're not there yet. We first want to build our build environment. So we're going to use this LFS variable, which is pretty much used as the root for your environment. So typically you would use /mnt/lfs where you would mount a partition, but we're going to use a different location. So let's start with our dist root. So at the very top of this script, we want to print out the distribution root and our LFS variable. So one issue here though is we want to be careful so that we're sure these variables are set, because if they're empty it could cause problems. Let me see. Let me make this executable first so I can run prepare, and right now you can see they're empty. So that could cause some real serious issues if you run this script and those variables do not exist. So like if we do ls-ls lfs / and it's not set, so we run it, oh look, there's files in there, but really there's not. This is actually the root. So if I ran anything on this, like rm-rf lfs / I would essentially be deleting my entire system. So you need to be really careful with that. And one thing we can do to make that easier is just change the way we're using this to the top. If we use colon and a question mark surrounded in curly braces, that's actually going to break the script if those aren't set. So now let's try running this again. Prepare. So you see distroot parameter null or not set, so it exits right away. So it never got to the point where it's actually running that ls command. So now we can set distroot to the location where I have this. And if I run prepare again, I got my distroot, but then an error on the LFS line. So this one, we're going to export LFS as distroot slash, and I think we want to use build environment. Actually, yeah, I don't want it to put that backslash there. And build underscore root. So that's going to be our LFS. So now we should be able to run this script again and total 0 files, because there's 0 files in that location. So that's how we protect our script, so that we don't end up destroying our whole host system by running a script with a variable not set. So there we go. So the next thing we want to do in our prepare script, let's go back over to the LFS site. I'm not going to worry about mounts or anything like that yet. So the next section is going to be the packages that we need. So in order to get these packages, we're going to create a directory sources underneath the LFS partition. And you can create it with this sticky bit set as well if you want to, but it's not really that necessary in this case. So what I'm going to do, let me just clear out this stuff here. I'm going to create that directory, LFS/sources. And let's go back to our Linux from Scratch web page. And there is actually a wget list. If you click on this, we can see all of the packages in one list that we need to download to do the whole Linux from Scratch series. But for our build environment, we actually don't need all of them. So what I think I'm going to do is kind of just pick out the ones that I need. So let me open this in a new tab. And let's see, starting with bin utils. So let me go back to this link. So I can control find bin utils. So I'm going to create a new list here. There will be my own wget list. I'll call it build env list. So these are going to be the packages that I need to download to create my build environment. Start with bin utils. Let's see, next here is GCC, then Linux headers, and glibc. So GCC. And let's see, glibc. Let's see, and the Linux headers, which is actually the full source for Linux. This current kernel 5.10.17. And then lib stdc++ as a part of GCC. So we need M4, ncurses, bash. So I'm going to kind of just run through these pretty quickly. So I'm just kind of fast forwarding through here so this video just doesn't drag on so long. Just going through the site and picking out all the packages that I see and pulling them out of the list. And if you want this full list, of course this will end up being in GitHub, so you'll be able to just look at the list from there, or pause the video at the end of this fast forward section. You can just see all the different packages right there. So what I'm also going to want to do is not have to re-download these if they're already downloaded. So let me back to my script here. First I'm going to make this -p. That just forces to create all subdirectories if needed. and not fail if it already exists. So let's see, now I want to start with, I'm going to create a for loop to loop through each of the items in that file. So for f in cat, let's see, actually I'm going to say dist root slash build env slash build env list. So for each file in that list, this is how you do a for loop in Bash, by the way, or one of the many ways. So for each of these files, let's see, right now I'm just going to print out the file, I guess. Echo $f. And let me just run that so you can see. Prepare. Let's see. Permission denied. Oh, that's because I need to use cat before this. So I'm going to cat the file and then loop through each of the results. Like you can see. Alright. So now let's say we want to only download binutils if it hasn't already been downloaded, for instance. So if we run this multiple times, so what we're going to do for that, let's grab the actual base name. We say bn equals, we're going to do base name of $f. So now if we echo that out, you see we got just the actual file from the URL. So now we can use that to run wget, but only if the file exists. So we can start this with an if section. So I do an if not test dash f, that means file. So then I want to do, let's see, $lfs slash sources slash $bn. That's going to be the base name. So have I downloaded it there? Does that file exist? That's essentially what this means. So, and also the spacing in this is important. So I need space, semicolon, space, then. If you don't do the spaces, it doesn't behave the way you expect. So inside my if block, I'm going to run wget and dash capital O. It's not a zero, it's capital O. LFS sources $bn. So that's the output of wget. It's going to be that file location. So now let me just run this. Prepare. So now it's downloading the first one, binutils. And let's download, say, one more. So we're downloading GCC. So the whole purpose of this if block is, let's say we have to stop somewhere here. And if you do stop in the middle of one, you want to delete that file too, because this code isn't intelligent enough to know if it downloaded the whole file. So what we'll do here, alright, we'll get glibc as well. And let me just control C there. So now looking at the files in the sources directory, this autocomplete's adding something there for me. You can see Linux. Let's remove that Linux file because that one wasn't fully downloaded, but the others were. Linux, oops, not Linux. There we go. So now we remove that. So now we can actually run this script again, and you'll see it takes off starting at Linux because it doesn't want to re-download the ones that have already been downloaded. Now I'm going to fast forward again just to run through all of these so we don't have to wait for them all to download. And now that we're complete, let me clear the screen. I'm going to just list the sources so we can see all the files are there. Let me clear that. Now if I try to run the script again, you can see it doesn't download anything because all the files already exist. So that's helpful when you're in the middle of creating scripts, so you don't have to keep re-downloading things or disabling things. You can just keep rerunning it after you make changes. So now let's move on to this next section, creating a limited file system. So we're going to create some of the essential base directories that we need for our build environment. And I'm always, this case thing here means to check if it's only an x64 machine. And for me, I don't really care about supporting 32 bits, so I'm just going to always only support 64-bit. I'm not going to worry about the sections that check if you're 32 or 64. I'm just going to add the 64 options and the tools directory as well. So this will create all those main subdirectories in our LFS directory. Another thing is creating a user to build with. So this is kind of optional again, but as you'll see if you read this here, when you're logged in as root, any mistake you made can destroy your system. For instance, that LFS not being set as we showed before, if you run that as root, it'll definitely destroy your system. So you might want to create a user. So let's just, if we use this ID command, we can find out if the user exists. Like you see ID/u LLD shows my ID. If I put the ID of a name like build user, you can see that user does not exist. So let me come up with a name for our build user. So let's see. I'll actually, first let me create this here. I don't want to use build user. I think I'm going to use, let's see, dist build or builder. Yeah, I think I like dist build better. So dist build will be the name of the user and the group. Dist build, dist build. So this user add command will add a user, set its shell, set its group, and all that. So first, I only want to create this user if it doesn't exist already. So I'm again using that if not test, and I run this dist build command. So if that command fails, then I want to run this because the user doesn't exist. So again, so I can run this script multiple times if needed. And of course, we need to set the user's password. So we'll say password dist build. And what else? You gotta change the ownership of these different directories. So I can again copy all this stuff. See, I'll need the sources as well. So I'll do that down here. And of course we want dist build, and we want the lib64 and sources. So now we have our user set up, and then you want to switch to that user. We're not doing that yet though. That's how eventually we will switch to that user. So let me run over here, go on to the next section. And so these are some essential files that you'll want to create. Now this has you do it after you log in first time with the user, but I'm going to kind of do it differently. I'll just create these as a part of that user. So I'm going to create this in, let's see, let's find the home for this user. So home for this user will be eval tilde dist builder. So that will be our DB home, and then we want to create that file. So this will say cat and redirect to the given file, until the input EOF is found. So then we're going to put EOF at the end. So essentially that's going to put everything between that and EOF inside that file. So let's see, we have that, and let me see, LFS. And yeah, we want to also create the bash RC file. So these are your essential login profile files for the user we created. And actually, I'm going to split this because we need more than just LFS. So we also need, let's see, yeah, we also need the dist root. So what I'm going to do is kind of copy this section here. I'm going to take the quotes off the EOF. That means that it's going to actually process my variable names. So see here, we set these. So instead of LFS equals mount LFS, we're going to do $LFS and take those out of there. So now we're going to make this append instead of recreate the file by using two greater than signs. All right. And I think that should be all that we need in there. So let me go back and run this. Clear. Prepare. Permission denied. Let's see. Oh, this needs to be run as the root user. So we need to run it as sudo that, and notice the parameter is not set, but if we say dist root, it's set. See, there it is. The problem is sudo doesn't know about that variable. So there's a way you can call sudo and make sure it's aware of your environment variables. You do --E. So now, there we go. It's creating that user. I'm going to set the password for it. And it changed the ownerships, and prepare failed. Home dist build is a directory. Oh, it means I did something wrong here. This should be, the DB home should be eval echo. So there you go. So now let's run that again. Let's delete that user first. Del user dist build. Oh, let's see. It is dist build. Oh, yeah. The problem is you need to use sudo for that too. So there we go. Now let's rerun this script. Prepare. But with sudo, yeah. So I'm just going to look through my history. There we go. Set the password again. Okay, so everything seems to run fine. So now if I run it again, it doesn't recreate the user because it already exists. So now we can actually try logging in as the user. Sudo dist build, say dash, and then password, and there we are as that user. And let me jump back a minute. We actually need dist root in there as well. I forgot this at the time I was typing it, but you're going to want to export that too. We'll do that later. So again, log in as that user. Not dist build. Recreate. Okay, and alright, again we recreated the user. So one thing we're going to want to be able to do is run, first let me run sudo, actually, yeah, so sudo v sudo, vi sudo, and that's going to allow me to edit who has access to the sudo command. So I want to put that build user in there as well. And his name was dist build. Say all equals all colon all, no password colon all. So he can run the sudo command without providing a password. I'll save it. So now let me go back to log in as that user. I'll just create a new folder here. I go dist root sudo su dist build. Login as that user. So I go dist root, and there we go. That's all set. And I should be able to run the sudo command as well. But let me just exit out of here. I'll go back here. And let's go on to the next section. Test suites we're not going to worry about yet. So now we can get into the actual process of building these environments. So there's another variable we're going to want to add here. Something called make flags. So we'll just export it onto the end of here. Export make flags equals, you don't want to use single quotes, equals -j $nproc. So this will say -j and the number of processors. That's going to tell make that it can use up to the number of processors you have, threads. So let me sudo del user and recreate that user again. But that's going to tell make to use all of your processors essentially, not just do everything single threaded. And in my case it's only 4, but 4 is better than 1. When I usually build this on my own workstation, it's got 12 cores with threading, so it actually builds things pretty fast. So you want to make sure you use all the resources you have. So not dist user, dist build. Okay, make flags, and there we go, -j4. So you want to make sure that's set so you're building things as fast as you can and not dragging along. So let's go and create a new file, create.sh. So now that we prepared the environment with all the stuff that we need, we'll take these and put them at the top of create as well. It's a safety. So we'll say creating build environment. So now that we've prepared and created all the directories and everything we need, the next thing we want to do is actually start building these things. So, but the first step in there, let's go in here, who am I, LLD. So we want to run these as this dist build user. So I can say if not test who am I equals dist build. Let's see, prepare. Yeah. So semicolon, then just want to echo, say must run as dist build, and then we'll exit the script with a -1 with an error code. So, and we'll do this only after doing that. So let's just try to run this script as that is. So change its modification to create. Alright, so there we go. It must run as dist build. And the chmod u plus x just makes it executable for the user. So now if I go as this user, say create.sh permission denied. Okay, I think the issue here is he doesn't have access in that directory. So I can make it 777 for now. That means everybody can read, write, and execute it, which isn't really a good thing to do, but for our purpose here, I'm just going to do that. So must run as dist build, log back on as that user. Dist root parameter is not set. This is where, again, I found, let me just fast forward to this. Alright, going back, I think is a bad idea to put this in the users directory, so I'm going to create a new directory on the root. Just call this LLD. So sudo make directory /LLD, and this is where we're going to actually put all of our code so that everything isn't in one user's home directory and then another user's accessing. It's not really a good practice. So for now, I'm just going to make that directory accessible by everyone. And that's not the normal way we're going to do things, but just for now I'm doing that. Let me actually move back. And I'm going to move this LLD dist, Linux dist, into that /LLD directory. So then go over to that LLD directory, and if I ls, I can see LLD still owns it. So I think what I want to do is add the LLD user to this group. So I'm going to chown R, it's capital R, LLD, and build, or not build, dist build. And so I'll make everything in there operation not permitted. I'll just use sudo. There we go. So now LLD and dist build are the owners. So go back into here, and now I'm going to sudo user mod -a and -G to add the dist build group for that user LLD, so that both of those users, my regular user and then the user I created, can both access everything in here. Just make sure I can create directories and stuff in here. Yep, all is good. I change to the other user dist build, or build dist, yeah, dist build dash, his password, and make sure he can do the same. You can see things, make a directory, and delete it. Okay, so both of them have access to all this stuff. So now let's go back. I'm going to open Visual Studio Code again here. And there's our version check. Okay, so now I'm going to check the git status. So now I'm going to just kind of see what files I have. I don't want build root in there because that's where we're actually building binaries. So I'm going to create a file .gitignore. Alright, I won't use VI, I'll do it in here. By default, I always go straight to VI, it's just habit. So I want build env /build root to be ignored. So anytime I commit code, I just don't want it to pay attention to anything in there. So I'll just add that. So now if I do, let's see, let me clear this and git status. Alright, I'm going to add build env. So you see all the files in build env. And I also want to add the gitignore file too. Alright, so I'm going to just commit this stuff. I'll say initial scripts. I guess I didn't configure my Git client yet, so let me just do all this. You might have to do this if you haven't run Git yet, to check in things at least, or not check in, but to commit. Use your email and username. Now I can commit and I can push. Just need to log in to GitHub. Alright, and there you go. So you'll want to do this kind of often. So if for some reason you run one of these RM commands on accident in the wrong place, you don't lose everything you've been working on. And trust me, I've done it several times. So everything's there uploaded. And okay, I think that's enough for this first video. I just wanted to get the initial things created here so we're prepared our environment and we're ready to start building some of the initial tools and cross-compiler tools that we need to start building all the different packages for our Linux distribution. And I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something from it. And again, you might want to check out that linuxfromscratch.org website. It's very useful. And there's some other YouTubers that have videos that walk you through everything, but it's all pretty well explained on the site, so you can probably just run through it yourself. I hope you learned, at least from this video, learned some bash scripting techniques and something about Linux. So in the next video we'll start working on actually building these tools and everything. So again, if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and all that. And thanks for watching.